For a little while now, I've wanted to upgrade my desk setup, and one of the main things I've wanted to do was going back to having a sit-stand desk. I use my desk mainly for work and for studying, and I essentially want to make my desk as suited to me as possible. So over the Christmas holidays, I've been able to substantially upgrade my previous IKEA iteration of my desk setup to the one I have now. And with this, I've got a brand new desk, new peripherals, and I've also removed my monitor stand, which means I've had to go out and get a monitor arm and new speakers. But thankfully, after spending a little bit of money, I'm really happy with how it's turned out. So in this video, I'm going to go through my 2024 productive MacBook desk setup. Starting with the desk. Well, I had a very clear idea of what I wanted before I went out trying to find a desk. Basically, I wanted a sit-stand desk. I wanted it to be 160 centimeters by 80 centimeters, and I wanted it to be made from walnut wood, and preferably with a sort of butcher block style desk. So that narrowed down my options pretty quickly. I then looked at various different sit-stand desk companies, and I found a few that I liked. However, none of them would really ship to the UK without the extortionate fees that you get with shipping something from abroad to the UK. So I then decided I'd have to get the legs and the desk separately. I quickly decided I liked the sit-stand desk legs from FlexiSpot, but I couldn't decide between their E7 desk and their E8 desk. Eventually, I settled on the FlexiSpot E8 desk legs because I liked the fact that the legs were rounded, and I just thought they looked a little bit better than the E7. Thankfully, at the time, they had a Christmas discount code available, so I managed to get the sit-stand desk legs for £300 rather than their usual price of £439.99. FlexiSpot do offer desks with the legs, but I couldn't find a desktop that I actually liked, despite the fact that they have a whole variety of options on their website. So then I kind of went back to the drawing board, and I tried to find a desk that met the criteria that I set out. I wanted a sit-stand desk, and as I just said, I'd managed to find the legs for a reasonable price, so that was possible. But I also wanted it to be 160 centimeters by 80 centimeters. I wanted it to be made from walnut wood, and preferably with a butcher block style desktop. What I also really liked was the Carlby kitchen countertops that you can get from IKEA and that a lot of people use as desktops for their desk setups. However, these have a really narrow depth, and that just wasn't what I wanted. But it did give me the idea to try and find somewhere that did a butcher block style kitchen countertop with a customizable size. And with this, I was able to find a company called Worktop Express. And as they were based in the UK, they would deliver it to my house, and they would also be able to cut the worktop to size. They also had both walnut options and black American walnut butcher block options available. Essentially, they made exactly what I wanted for a desktop. So in the end, I ended up purchasing the black American walnut butcher block countertop in 160 centimeters by 80 centimeters size. I had all the corners rounded as I just preferred that look, and I had the worktop pre-oiled as well. So essentially, when I got it, it was ready to use. The only challenge was, once they were both delivered, I had to assemble them. Putting the FlexiSpot legs together was fairly straightforward, and I was able to do it without too much bother, except for when one of my dogs decided that it would be really helpful to sit right in front of me whilst I built them. I then had to adjust the legs so that they were wide enough for the desktop that I'd purchased from Worktop Express. I then had to drill the holes into the desktop so that they aligned with legs. Thankfully, it worked out really well, and the FlexiSpot legs can hold a lot of weight, up to 125 kilograms, which is good because this desktop is pretty heavy. Like I said, the desktop is 160 centimeters by 80 centimeters. It's also quite chunky with a height of 4 centimeters. Overall though, I think it looks really good and pretty much exactly what I wanted. I also really like having the sit-stand function again, something I actually use a surprising amount. It's a function I've missed having. Another big change that I've made to my desk setup is the monitor, despite the fact I haven't changed the monitor itself. I have the Huawei MateView GT 34-inch ultra-wide monitor, and arguably it's one of the oldest components of my desk setup. It's got a 165Hz display and uniquely comes with a monitor stand that also acts as a soundbar. I've been using the monitor stand with the soundbar before, and that was okay because I'm not an audiophile, but I tend to use headphones or AirPods with my setup. However, the problem with this was it meant I couldn't put the monitor onto a monitor arm, as I'd lose the soundbar function as well. But in the end, I wanted the flexibility of a monitor arm, so I'm now no longer using the soundbar. The monitor itself works really well. I had it sent back to Huawei once when it got damaged when I was moving house, and they repaired it without issue as it was still under warranty. It only needs one USB-C cable to plug directly into my MacBook, so that I've got this running as a one cable setup. For the monitor arm, I had to find one which was able to support the weight of an ultra-wide monitor and had a lot of flexibility. After looking around a little bit, I decided to go with the Ergotron LX desk monitor arm. This arm is aimed at displays which are up to 34 inches wide and can weigh up to 11.3 kilograms. It was quite pricey, around £175, but I've had no issues with it since I've got it. I wanted to get a monitor arm that would give me the appearance that the monitor was floating above the desk shelf, and this monitor arm does exactly that. I've also been able to run the cables down the back of the monitor arm, which helps with the cable management. To put it simply, it works really well, but it is quite pricey. This whole setup is powered by a MacBook Pro 13-inch M1 2021 version. I've had this MacBook for about 2.5 years now and it does exactly what I need it to do. At some point I'm probably going to have to upgrade it, but for now it works absolutely fine. This is the exact same MacBook that I had with my previous setup, and the only real thing I've changed about it is where I place it on my desk, as it now sits under my desk shelf rather than in a separate stand. Like I said before, if I want to take my MacBook anywhere, I just need to unplug the USB-C cable and I'm good to go. One significant improvement I've made is investing in the CalDigit 4 Thunderbolt docking station. This docking station keeps my MacBook charged and also plugs into all of my peripherals, as well as the monitor itself. It also allows for the MacBook to be removed from the desk simply by unplugging the USB Type-C cable. I have it sat underneath my desk shelf so you can barely see it. It's also useful for when I'm editing, because I can just plug my SSD card straight into the CalDigit 4 without needing to use an adapter. It also helps with cable management, as there's no longer any cables on the desk and everything is just plugged into the back of the CalDigit 4. As I said before, I'm now using a desk shelf, which helps to give me more space on my desk. It also helps with the floating appearance of the monitor itself, as none of the cables can be seen behind the shelf. This is a desk shelf that's a lot cheaper than some of the more common brands, such as Grovemade or Oakwood. I've got it in a walnut colour, and when it arrived, it was really easy to assemble. I don't think it's real wood, but it does match my desk, and it was significantly cheaper than any of the other named brands that you can possibly get. It was also delivered a lot quicker. I got the shelf from a company named Varol, and I think they're based in the UK. I've got the bigger 120cm version. You can also get in a smaller 80cm version. It has a large sliding tray with felt tracks which stops it catching. Beneath the tray is where I keep my MacBook, and when it's plugged in there's plenty of room for it to sit under the shelf. On the other side of it I've got my CalDigit docking station, and there's plenty more storage room for anything else that I want to put underneath my desk shelf. On top of the shelf I have the speakers either side of the floating monitor. I also have the control puck for the BenQ Hale light bar. All this fits neatly onto the Varol desk shelf itself, and there's plenty of room left for anything else I want to put there. Now that I'm no longer using the soundbar stand which came with the monitor, I've had to go out and get some speakers. I wanted speakers that were of a reasonable quality and would go well with the desk. In the end I went with the Edifier R1280dB Bluetooth bookshelf speakers. They work perfectly well for what I need them to do, and they fit nicely either side of the monitor. I've got them both on these 7-inch speaker stands which I got from Amazon for around £40. This raises the speakers up at a slight angle, essentially so that the speakers are facing me when I'm at the desk. I've had these speakers before, and these are being used with a record player in our bedroom, so I knew they were of a good quality and at a decent price. The good thing about them as well is you can connect them via Bluetooth if you want, which does give you some flexibility. Whilst I do have brand new speakers, I still tend to prefer using my AirPods. I do find that they just help me zone out. I also still have a pair of the older version AirPods which I use if the battery's running low on my version 3s. Still using the same chair as last time, which means I've still got the IKEA lift gel office chair in the golden brown colour. Like I said last time, I have no plans on changing this, as it's really comfortable and it was a nightmare getting hold of from IKEA, as it kept running out of stock every time I went to buy it. IKEA do consider it to be an ergonomic office chair, and it does come with a 10-year guarantee. The chair height and backrest and the seat depth all adjust. Yeah, it's probably not as good as a Herman Miller chair, but it's also nowhere near as expensive. I also use this IKEA stool when I've got the desk in a standing position, but when I can't be bothered standing anymore. Surprisingly, I'd argue that this is a position I like having the desk in most, and I actually do use the stool quite a lot. Again, it's from IKEA and it's called the Lidcoolen desk, and it's considered an active sit-stand support stool. It moves when you move on the stool, which is supposed to help change positions. I just like it because I like moving about on my chair, and I tend not to sit still if I'm at a desk. Still using the exact same desk mat that I had last year. I have the dark grey desk mat from Oakwood, which comes in a size of 90cm by 30cm. This size is perfect as it fits all my peripherals, which I use with my setup. Because it has a cork underside, it doesn't move on the desk, and I've had it for over a year now and I have no plans on changing it. My mouse glides over it without any issues. So now moving on to the peripherals that I use with my desk setup. I have a mouse, a keyboard, and then the Apple trackpad. Starting with the mouse, I have the Keychron M6 mouse, which I got last month, and I think has since continued to be out of stock on the Keychron website. Initially I wasn't too sure about this mouse and continued to use the Logitech MX Master 3, and I've done a whole video discussing the differences between the two, which I'll link up here. But since swapping to it and using it consistently, you really do notice the difference in precision between the two due to the much higher polling rate of the M6. Only two drawbacks to the mouse that I can see are the fact that the Keychron haven't yet released their customization software for Mac, so I can't customize the buttons. Another big issue with it is the battery. The battery is nowhere near as good as the battery you'd find on the MX Master Mouse. However, the Keychron M6 is half the price of the MX Master Mouse, and once Keychron get it back in stock, it's something I definitely recommend that people consider. The keyboard I use, or really I should be saying keyboards I use, are the Logitech MX keys and the Newfie Air 96 version 2. Which keyboard I use really depends on what I'm doing. If I'm typing out an essay or I have work that involves a lot of word processing, I tend to switch to the MX keys because I can type a lot faster on it. However, when it comes to just sort of general usage, I tend to swap back to the Air 96 as I just prefer the keyboard. I also think it looks better and I prefer the low profile mechanical switches. I also like the fact that Air 96 has more backlighting options than the MX keys, which basically only has one, and that is essentially white. Either way, both keyboards have number pads and I like the fact they both have really good battery lives. Then finally, I've also recently got the Apple Magic trackpad. I like having this available mainly for the gesture options it gives you, and it's really useful to be able to scroll quickly at the Final Cut Pro. Overall, they both fit really well with the desk mat, and they're all either black or space grey, and they all go with the setup. I also like the fact if I want to write something on the desk, I can just push the desk mat forward and then I've got a clear desk. So first of all, I don't use a desk lamp, but I do have 3 different sources of light for my desk. On the back of my monitor, I have a set of Philips Hue play bars, which I had from before. I still think these are great. They stick to the back of my monitor without issue. I like setting the background to a sort of warm, orangey colour or a sort of natural light. I'm not a big fan of RGB lighting. I was also so impressed with my Philips Hue play bars that I went and got a Philips Hue gradient floor light, which I have in the corner behind my dragon tree. This helps to give an additional light at night and just makes it a bit of a nicer environment to work in. Because it's a gradient light, I can choose 3 different colours and the standard light bar blends these colours together. Finally, I've also now got a BenQ Halo light bar. This has made a surprising amount of difference. Again, I like setting it to a warm light, and because of the wireless puck, it's entirely adjustable without having to touch the light bar itself. BenQ also provides an adapter for curved monitors, which works really well, so I've not had any issues using it with my Huawei MateView GT curved monitor. All 3 light sources make it easy enough to sit at my desk at night without having to put the main light on. It just helps with things like eye strain, especially if you're sitting at night doing some work, staring at the monitor for a long period of time. I won't talk too much about my plants because I have a tendency to get comments on my videos to say get rid of the plants, which I obviously won't, and I've somehow ended up getting more compared to my previous video. But basically, I have a dragon tree in the corner, a cast iron plant on the side of my desk, I also have a snake plant in the corner, and then a really temperamental Calathea sits on the IKEA Alex drawers on the right side of my desk. I've managed to arrange plants so changing between sitting and standing at the desk doesn't cause any issues. Basically, I like having all of my desk plants, and I have no plans on getting rid of any of them. Finally, cable management. This is one of the main reasons I wanted to get a monitor arm. I wanted to try and remove as many cables from my site as possible, and if I do say so, I don't think I've done too bad a job. I bought 2 cable management trays from Amazon and I fed a power socket into the cable management trays. Rather than drilling the cable management trays into the desk, I've actually been able to clamp them at the back to hold them in place, and this has stopped me damaging the desk itself. This does mean that the trays do overhang onto the desk, but you can't see them because of the desk shelf. I've also managed to run all the cables from the monitor down the monitor arm and cable tie them so they're more difficult to see. They also get hidden behind the speakers on either side of my desk. I appreciate the cable trays aren't the neatest, but they're a lot better than I had them last year. It also means I only have one cable going from the monitor to the cable tray to the power socket at the wall, and this cable runs behind the IKEA Alex drawers. What I have managed to achieve is no cables on the floor at all. If you have liked my newest version of my desk setup, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in my next video. Thanks.